Hey friends, so in my previous video I talked about tinkering mindset, which is this idea of just fiddling with things a lot, right? Like taking things apart, putting them back together, not just physical things, but also with ideas and with writing and with, music, coding, whatever it is. This idea of just try stuff, make stuff that's crappy, mess around with it, fiddle with it, make it go faster, make it slower, make it bigger, make it smaller, turn it the other way around, fiddle with it and see what happens and learn from it. That's what I think of as tinkering mindset. Now, to get meta about it, how I think about, and I was bringing this up in relation to the book that I'm working on. I want to talk about tinkering with your mindset, right? So, again, what is a mindset? I think a mindset is a way of making sense of the world, right? It's a way of seeing, it's a way of processing things, it's a way of thinking about stuff. And that itself is something that can be investigated, can be examined, can be tinkered with. And this might be a function of my personality, so maybe it doesn't work equally well for everyone, and maybe you shouldn't force yourself to try to do something that doesn't feel natural to you. But for me, I've always been interested in having many different options, many different ways of seeing, many different ways of thinking. I like to read different authors, watch different movies, listen to different music, and I feel like the contrast between things is what helps me understand each thing better. And everything is relationships, right? Everything is you know what is light in contrast with what is dark, what is loud in contrast to what is soft. And someone once saw my YouTube bio where I mentioned Alan Watts, ContraPoints, early Jordan Peterson, and I think George Carlin. And it's just, they said the idea of even just putting ContraPoints and Jordan Peterson in the same breath, mentioning it in the same breath, that seems kind of weird, kind of strange. But to me, it's like I try to see what is useful and what is valuable in each person. And I may not necessarily, agree with everything everyone's saying or kind of accept their values even, but there's usually something to be learned from how they are effective at what they do. And I think what I answered in the tweet was I think both Contra and Jordan are good at conveying to their audience that they care. And you might disagree with that, and I think very often it's a common criticism from people who don't like some actor that person is being false, is being fake. You might say that they are just egomaniacs, right? They're just people who want to be famous. They're just people who want to grift and make money and exploit people. That's always kind of the easy criticism to deploy. And I think it's interesting to at least for the sake of argument or for the sake of making sense of something, imagine it wasn't the case. Imagine that all of these people are acting in good faith. And it's probably not accurate to assume that 100% of people are acting 100% in good faith all the time. And yet there's something to be learned or discerned from the model of what if this person is doing what they think is best, right? And I think that these people, true for Alan Watts, true for George Carlin, true for all the people that I don't know if I want to say admire, but all the people that I study, right? I look for people who I think are trying their best, who I think have formulated a view of the world that they think is correct, and that they are kind of arguing for their values, and they are kind of trying to do what they think is right. And I think it's much more interesting. The world becomes much more interesting when you assume that even people on opposing camps are each perceiving something that is true. So even if you take I don't know why I'm drawn to talking about American left versus right, conservative versus liberal. I guess it's the most dominant frame in the world, right? And even then, the conventional stereotype of a conservative and the conventional stereotype of a liberal, each of them has some truth in their model. And you might say that they also deny some truth, right? Like that's part of what I think one way of describing any in-group is that they fixate on some truth that is meaningful to them, and they might be in denial of some inconvenient truth, maybe potentially. Like there's some nuance there about what it takes to get, as you know, what's a good signal of in-group membership. I don't really want to get into the details of that. Point is, you can learn from almost anyone, and who is operating at a high level, right? And again, that's also debatable. You can analyze it, like what does high level mean. Endless fun, right? You can never get into all of it in a single video. You can never get all of it in a single session of analysis and thinking. But if you keep thinking about it and you keep asking questions and you keep analyzing, and every day you explore a different question, over time you do develop a kind of big, comprehensive model of models, right? There's multiple models within the larger model. I don't know if it's even accurate to say that the larger model is to imply that the larger model is coherent, because it's probably not. It's made of many different incoherent parts. Just as any sufficiently large complex thing is full of many incoherent parts, many competing perspectives, frames of reference. Anyway, tinkering with your mindset. I didn't get around to using this phrase in my book, which is about introspection. It's about, kind of evaluating your internal narratives and thinking about what matters to you and what you care about and why you care about it and what your goals and motivations are and what has stopped you from, living the life you want. And I got excited when I stumbled across the phrase, in my own kind of rambling, stumbled across the phrase tinkering with your mindset, because I like how that implies non-finality, non-certainty, right? Uncertainty, right? It's about this constant process of messing around, trying things out, realizing you might be wrong. You're almost definitely wrong in many ways that you may not even realize, and yet having a kind of upbeat, optimistic perspective on it. And yeah, I like that when I come up with a phrase that I really like, it sort of strengthens my convictions about what I think I already know. And maybe, a few years from now, I'll say something like, oh, I used to say tinkering with mindset, and that was a limiting frame in some way because it did not consider this or it did not consider that. Maybe. But right now, it's something that is kind of exciting, something that's compelling, something that has a lot of possibility in it for me to explore. And as long as there's something to explore, I continue to be excited. And as long as I'm excited, I'm basically happy. And that works for me. Done.